Thank you, Rita. Good evening and welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. They were sold as luxury homes, but 2 years on, residents say they're still surrounded by rubble and have been let down by developers.
I feel like I've been duped because this is not what I signed up for.
The developers say they are working to finish the estate. Also tonight, the new Yorkshire charity giving free holidays to families of children with cancer in memory of 3-year-old Archie. On Your Bike, the scheme to get us out of our cars and riding around Leeds on electric bikes. And we'll bring you the highlights from the first day of the Harrogate Flower Show.
And things will feel distinctly autumnal as we head through next week. But what about the weekend? I'll be back later in the programme with a full look ahead.
Good evening and thank you for joining us this Friday night. Now, they were sold as new homes on a luxury housing estate, but instead residents on one new development in North Yorkshire say they found themselves surrounded by rubble, weeds and dangerous wasteland. Homeowners have told Look North they've been waiting for more than 2 years for the communal areas, roads and pavements to be finished. Now, more than 200 have signed a petition demanding work is done. Olivia Richwald reports.
Hodgson Gate in Sherburn and Elmet was designed as a new luxury estate of 280 homes, with all of the roads named after butterflies. The houses were completed about a year and a half ago, but the estate remains unfinished.
I don't want family or friends to visit because I'm a bit embarrassed about having to drive through the estate past the hideous compound where there's just rubble and bricks left there with weeds growing on, and then get to my house, and I feel like I've been duped. Because this is not what I signed up for.
The estate was supposed to have 2 play areas, but they remain fenced off and unfinished.
So we've just walked a short distance from your home and the play area is supposed to be just down there. I mean, it must be frustrating.
We've missed out this summer and last summer as well. It's just not ready and it's still fenced off, locked away from the kids.
Adam and Mel have lived in their home for almost 2 years and have 2 young boys. They have to get in the car to drive to the nearest park.
It's just so sad that they can't ride the bikes on the paths because it's just so uneven. Yeah, it's just really disappointed, really. They have all these lovely butterfly names and stuff like that, and it's just horrible. It's just...
No, there's no butterflies on this estate.
The estate is managed by Yorkshire Housing, which appointed Countryside Properties to build the homes. That company was then merged with the Vistry Group last year. Residents have been paying about £11 a month for the communal areas to be maintained, but those fees have since been refunded.
Yorkshire Housing, which is responsible for maintaining the communal areas, said it shared residents' frustrations that the site wasn't finished yet. In a statement it said, "This isn't the standard we expect. Countryside Partnerships are under contract to complete the outstanding work, and we're speaking with them to make sure this is done as quickly as possible. We've been on site this morning speaking to residents and listening to their concerns."
Meanwhile, the now renamed Countryside Partnerships said that it was working to ensure outstanding work was completed as soon as possible, and the main works would recommence on October the 2nd.
There was so much excitement when we moved in. We were going to have like a community party in the play areas, and we still want to do that, but it's almost like 2 years down the line and we're still drumming our fingers thinking, when can we do that?
Olivia Richwald, BBC Look North, Sherburn in Elmet.
Next tonight, Archie Vaughan was just 3 when he died from a brain tumour 2 years ago. His parents, Hayley and Craig from Leeds, say it left them broken. Now they're setting up a charity in his memory, giving children with cancer and their families free holidays on the Yorkshire coast in a caravan named after Archie. They hope it'll give families the chance to make precious memories together during the toughest of times. Jess Greason-Smith reports.
Archie Vaughan was born on Christmas Day in 2019. He was the youngest of 3 children.
Smash it.
It was in May 2021, his parents Hayley and Craig started to notice some slight changes in his behaviour. After a number of hospital appointments, they were called in for a meeting.
I got the call to come down, so obviously that's when I kind of realised there was something very serious. And we went into a room in the LGI, and that's when they delivered the news that it was an aggressive brain tumour and it was terminal.
We were just broken, weren't we? You've got to go tell your family, you've got to come back and face Archie and look at him and know that he's going to die. And I think that was very hard, wasn't it? Because you just want to protect him.
The family fundraised more than £70,000 for proton beam therapy abroad.
We didn't want to put him through that just for time. So we kind of stopped the fundraising. It was like sort of, it needs to stop now because we don't need it anymore. The night before he passed away, you took him out to watch the fireworks because he passed away on the 7th of November, so obviously we were very close to bonfire night. In the morning he just took quite a lot of deep breaths and passed away with those all around him. Archie just loved going to the beach. Like as soon as he was poorly, all we tried to do was like get away as much as we can, just enjoy time at the seaside.
Using the money they raised, the family bought a holiday caravan in Archie's memory, which is being offered to families who have also been affected by childhood illnesses.
Yeah, it's great to see, especially when you see the guest book and the reviews, and you know, if it's bringing any sort of happiness to families, then you know, we're really happy with that. So we took Archie there, and we sat him down in the caravan, and we told him that it was his caravan. He just knew that day was about him.
And he said to me on the way home, he went, "Mum, I love that caravan. This will always be in his memory."
To have something like this and to see the demand so high, and you know, for everyone who comes to be having such a good time and making family memories, it's great. We're currently in the process of registering Archie's caravan as an official charity. So obviously we do not benefit financially from this. We just want to obviously help families and, you know, in Archie's memory.
We always talk about what Archie would think in every situation, don't we? Yeah. I just think he'd just be so proud.
Jess Greason-Smith, BBC Look North.
Oh, what a beautiful little boy and an incredible legacy to leave behind there. Now you're watching Friday's Look North. Still to come on tonight's programme, Love Thy Neighbours. We meet a co-housing community where residents share a meal, their gardens and run a community hub. A jury has heard a Yorkshire hotel owner who ran over the mother of a bride-to-be told police he didn't know what happened until he heard a terrible noise from under his car. Judith Wadsworth died after she was hit by a Range Rover at the Coniston Hotel and Spa near Skipton. Nicholas Bannister denies causing death by careless driving. Alex Moss reports from Bradford Crown Court.
It was the day before her daughter's wedding at the Coniston Hotel near Skipton, and Judith Wadsworth was there helping with final preparations for the big day. The 66-year-old was there with her husband, granddaughter and other members of the family to watch her daughter Rebecca get married. She'd been bringing in boxes from the car park when she was hit by Nicholas Bannister's Range Rover as she crossed a pedestrian walkway. Now today, the trial at Bradford Crown Court was read a transcript of Mr Bannister's interview in which he told police, "I just didn't see her." In his interview, which took place just a few hours after that fatal crash on the 7th of February 2020, he said he'd been heading to the hotel spa to go for a run in the gym. He said he stopped at the T-junction, looked right, then left, then right again. He said it was only when he heard a terrible noise under his car that he was aware something was wrong. He then went on to describe getting out of his Range Rover and seeing Mrs Wadsworth lying on the road. Now, over the course of the week, the courts have heard from a number of experts discussing the issue of whether Mr Bannister should have been able to see Mrs Wadsworth as she crossed the walkway. One of these experts said had he been looking at her, then she would have been, as he described, highly visible. But earlier today, another expert said that couldn't be conclusively stated because there was no consistent evidence about where Mrs Wadsworth was when she was hit or what Mr Bannister's line of sight was. Now, Mr Bannister denies causing her death by careless driving, and jurors will return here on Monday as the trial continues.
Some news in brief now, and police in North Yorkshire are asking for anyone with video footage of a crash near Brimham Rocks to contact them. 17-year-old Alfie Lovett from York was a passenger in a car which left the road and hit a wall. He died at the scene. Detectives say they're aware of videos being circulated online. They've asked that people stop showing the footage and pass it to them to help their investigation. Operations at the distribution centre of Wilko in Worksop have finished for the final time tonight. The high street chain collapsed in August, putting more than 12,500 jobs at risk. Wilko's rivals have been buying up parts of the company since administrators were unable to find a buyer for the whole business. Some staff may be re-employed, but the Wilko shops will disappear from the high street. York's two most senior councillors will jointly sign a letter to the government calling for more funding for local services. It comes as the council agreed a plan to fill an £11.4 million gap in this year's budget. It will see car parking charges go up and possible introduction of charges for collecting garden waste.
York has been looking towards and forward to the Fair Funding Review for a number of years now, for many years, and it simply hasn't happened. We know that York is one of the lowest funded local authorities in the country, and we would benefit from the Fair Funding Review. So it is really important that we get that carried out so that we can bring additional revenue into the council.
And we love this guy. Sheffield's man with the pram, John Burkle, has won a regional fundraising Pride of Britain award. John is seen across the county with his famous green wig, collecting money for cancer charities like Macmillan. He's raised a whopping £1 million, mostly in cash, and has been recognised for his impressive work. Fantastic effort there. Now, for the past 8 years, work has been ongoing to create a cycle superhighway around Leeds to encourage more of us to get out of our cars and onto our bikes. There are now over 100 miles of cycle lanes in the city, but as we all know, Yorkshire can be quite hilly and a push bike isn't for everyone. So now a new electric bike rental scheme has been launched with 300 bikes available. We sent Beth Parsons to try them out.
This is one of the new e-bike docking stations in Leeds. Given the go-ahead a few months ago, today was launch day.
The motor will give you that boost, so going up hills, getting you there a bit faster, so that you don't have to get a sweat on to finish your journey. So it will enable people in the centre of Leeds and out here in Headingley and as far south as Holbeck in the first phase to cycle into town rather than getting in a car or get the bus and then get a bike.
Now, for research purposes, today's report isn't going to be done on 2 feet. It's instead going to be done on 2 wheels. The first thing that you will need is the app.
Choose your ticket type, tap to unlock,
Unlocking.
and you're good to go. The pay-as-you-ride option costs you £1 plus 16 pence per minute.
Now, speed-wise, these things move at no more than 15 miles per hour. As for the rules, helmets and high-vis are advised but not compulsory, and just like a bike, you should be on a cycle lane like this one or the road, not a pavement.
When you've finished your journey, return it to the docking station so it can charge up ready for its next ride. And make sure you lock both locks or you'll be charged a tenner for not locking it up safely. There are several docking stations in Headingley where we've been cycling today, but there are plenty more to choose from in Leeds city centre too.
I think it's a really positive thing for Leeds and looking forward to seeing it in action.
They're familiar with kitting people out with e-bikes at this shop in Bramley. But as cyclists, do they think Leeds is prepared?
I'm not sure they've quite devised the road network so that bikes are given the priority that they need. So it's actually quite awkward getting around on a bike sometimes. That's coming from a driver and a cyclist perspective. It just doesn't make people more inclined to ride, and I think the idea of a cycle lane is that it needs to be so easy to use that people don't think twice about it.
Leeds Council say they know the cycle network needs to get better and are working hard to improve it. The other concern from people I met today was about potential vandalism to the bikes.
Because you have to use the app to unlock them, they know who's got that bike at that time. That's really good for data collection, but it's also really good for knowing who's got the bike and therefore who's responsible if anything goes wrong with it.
So currently there are around 300 of these in Leeds, but if everything goes well, 600 are promised by March next year. Beth Parsons, BBC Look North, Leeds.
Ooh, I am loving the idea there of an electric bike. Oggy is with us now. Oggy, you're a bit of a keen cyclist. What do you think about the electric type?
Oh, definitely have a go.
Yeah?
Definitely have a go when the time's right, Amanda.
You and me on a tandem?
Oh, yes, now you're talking. Mind you, we'll both wear helmets, which there was somebody in that piece, nothing to do with us, who wasn't wearing a helmet, and that is definitely a necessity in the city of Leeds and beyond. We'll talk about cycling another time, because we've got loads to get through. Super League, the penultimate week of the regular season. Our attention, I'm afraid, is much more focused on the bottom of the table than the top. Wakefield Trinity find themselves on the brink of relegation ahead of their match at Lee. Castleford Tigers' situation less onerous, even though Tigers are playing at Wigan tonight. For Wakefield Trinity to avoid the drop, they would have to win both of their final 2 matches, as well as hoping that Castleford lose theirs. It's an unlikely path to survival for a Trinity team that has only won 4 times all season.
We've not given up hope that we can stay in Super League this year. I know the odds are against us, but we'll be doing everything we can to go for that. But, you know, if the worst did happen, we'd also be doing everything we could to make sure it's a short stay out of that top flight and straight back into it.
It's no coincidence that Wakefield's Bellevue home is currently being redeveloped for whatever their future holds. Promotion to and automatic relegation from Super League will soon be replaced by a grading system, rating clubs' eligibility by different areas of their infrastructure and culture. Apart from results on the field and finances, stadium suitability and value to the local community will be key criteria.
I think the main thing is just making sure that it feels like a big community in the Wakefield districts, you know, so that local teams want to be associated with their local club, which is Wakefield. You have your pathways running through your districts, you know, and all pathways lead to Wakefield Trinity.
Let's have a bit of racing now. Yesterday at Doncaster St Ledger's meeting, as I hope you saw on Look North, was Ladies' Day. Today has been the traditional Doncaster Day, honouring all things Doncaster, including today's main race, the Doncaster Cup, in its 257th year. That's even older than the Ledger itself. The race won by outsider Trushan, ridden by Holly Doyle. And if you are planning on going walking anywhere this weekend across a chunk of the Yorkshire or Derbyshire countryside, spare a thought for this group of amazing fundraisers who have set off today on a 100-kilometre walk from Headingley Stadium in Leeds to the home of Hull FC and Hull City Football Club's the MKM Stadium. They're raising money for the Motor Neurone Disease Association, inspired by Kevin Sinfield and, of course, Rob Burrow and his family. Look out for them this weekend. I could say more, Amanda. I will leave you with a big up, as we say in the trade, for Tadcaster Albion against Chester in the FA Cup tomorrow. They're on the BBC Sport live stream.
Fantastic. We have everything crossed for them. Thank you very much, Paul. Now, how well do you get on with your neighbours? We have lovely neighbours on our street, but could you handle a weekly shared meal? Would you trust them to manage the maintenance of your home? Well, today, a co-housing community officially opens in Chapeltown in Leeds. 33 households moved in back in December. They have their own newly built houses, but also share gardens and a community hub, and they run it all themselves. Abby Jayola has been to meet them.
More than just bricks and mortar, these houses are different to most. Chaco is a co-housing community, a combination of affordable flats and townhouses, rented or part-owned, but the people who live here run and manage the development themselves.
So a lot of what we do is looking after the place and making decisions about how any budgets run or how we look after the ground and things like that. So there's a lot of meetings, but actually collectively working together is a really nice thing to do.
Residents live separately, but there is a shared common house open to all. It has a laundry, kitchen, lounge and a kids' playroom.
We have discos every Friday at 6 p.m. We have shared meals. Living in Chaco is quite nice. You do get people coming around your house asking for things quite a lot, but it's quite nice in the sense that if you feel like you need someone to talk to, there's always someone to talk to.
The 33 households are a mix of families, single people and couples. The community meet to decide who can move in to make sure they share the same values.
It is multiracial, multi-ethnic and multi-economic. I think most of the other housing societies which we visited have been primarily white middle-class societies. Whereas in this one, we tried hard right from the very word go to have enough representations to be a part of Chapeltown.
Welcome to my living room.
Christine moved from a small flat and now lives in a 3-bedroom townhouse with her young son.
It is far much better, and we feel safer as well, because we are where we did not know all our neighbours, but here we know everyone. Kids can just come in and out whenever they feel like coming in.
This scheme has been 13 years in the making. David is the current chair of Chaco and oversaw the build project. He's lived in Chapeltown all his life.
So it's very much linked to the wider community of Chapeltown. Although this is a very unique, small community within Chapeltown, it's still very close.
Teamwork is key here to making these houses a real home for a community. Abby Jaola, BBC Look North, Chapeltown.
And I drive past those houses every day, so it's lovely to get a little tour there. Now, you could shake, rattle and roll your way back in time this weekend at the National Tramway Museum in Derbyshire. 2 historic trams from Leeds and another 2 from Sheffield will be running as part of a special weekend. The 2 cities were the last in England to run trams, with Leeds closing its system in 1959 and Sheffield a year later. Passengers will get to back on board at the museum and find out how their grandparents got around.
It's a time when our volunteers have lots of fun because we get to take out lots of trams, and it's a time when it's really interesting for visitors because there's a lot of variety happening. This weekend particularly we're focusing on our Sheffield and Leeds trams. Sunday is the day to come for Sheffield and Leeds trams.
Sounds great, but if you don't fancy a trip back in time, what about going to see some beautiful blooms like these? There's been some amazing flower displays on offer for visitors at the first day of the Autumn Harrogate Flower Show. Record-breaking veg and tents full of fabulous floral arrangements are on show at Newby Hall near Ripon. Nicola Rees has been to see what's on offer.
Hello from Newby Hall near Ripon, where we are celebrating all things autumn, and you join us in the incredible edible pavilion. Just look at all of this fantastic produce. This is a cucumber, bright yellow, enormous, and it didn't even win. That's not even a winner. It's the only thing I'm allowed to touch in this whole tent, I've been warned. Giant leeks. Hundreds of thousands of flowers actually that you can't see inside this tent, but there's just all sorts to see. Now, Nick Smith is the show director and he knows a lot about these giant vegetables, especially the onions. Nick, how are you? How's today been?
Well. It's gone great. I mean, it's gone a little quieter now because we're at the end of the day, but what a day it's been. It's been magnificent.
Introduce us to your new friend.
I mean, how can I? We're so excited. This is the record-breaking onion. So we've just sent off to Guinness, so Guinness Book of Records know that this is now the biggest onion in the world, the heaviest onion in the world.
Competitors from all over the country desperate to showcase here, and you've had a record breaker as well. That is really...
£19 and 7 ounces. It's absolutely huge. It broke the world record, which was £18 and 11 ounces. If you can imagine how many onion rings you can get from that, that's just incredible.
So 30,000 visitors by the end of the weekend. That
Hopefully.
Must take some doing. I bet there's a lot going on behind the scenes today.
There is, but when you see the outcome of it, when you see what everyone achieves by bringing all these fantastic plants and produce to the show, it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
I've got to see a colossal cabbage. We've got to have a look. Let me see about this. Yep, a full arm span there.
It's a full arm span, absolutely.
What goes into growing a cabbage like this?
I mean, you can imagine a lot of water to keep these going so they don't bolt, so they don't explode up into the air. You need to make sure that they're watered. So that's been fine, you know, for most of August, but it wasn't fine in June when the weather was so dry. So to achieve this, these growers have just been incredible, really.
Tell us a little bit about your favourites. What's your highlight for the weekend?
Oh, well, I mean, as well as this, you know, obviously the onion is fantastic, but there is so much else. There's the plant pavilion with just dozens of fantastic plant nurseries in, there's plant societies, there's food theatres, there's talks about gardening, there's so much going on. And the house and the gardens at Newby here as well. There is so much that we want to just share with people, so we just encourage them to come along and enjoy it.
And fingers crossed the weather stays kind. And we've only been able to show you just a small amount of what's on offer here, but you can come along the next 2 days. Whether you want to wrestle a giant pumpkin, you won't be allowed to do that, or just come and admire the flowers, do some shopping for your garden.
Oh, lovely, always a favourite on the calendar. Now on to the weather prospects. I have to say, Keely, my neighbour has made these incredible batches of raspberries. Apparently the damp season, the damp June, has meant for great raspberries.
Yeah, my mum is making raspberry jam as we speak, hopefully. Yeah. No, she's got absolutely loads of raspberries, yes. And it's going to feel a lot more like autumn next week, Amanda. I think we'll be waking up to a few mornings that look like this. This was the start of the day in Home Firth. We've got several pictures that were like this, lots of mist and low cloud in the valleys. Some of us saw some brightness this afternoon. In fact, parts of West Yorkshire and parts of South Yorkshire brightened up nicely, as you can see from our second picture. But that sunshine was rather more elusive across parts of North Yorkshire. You can spot the deliberate mistake. Of course, that isn't Home Firth. I'm reliably informed it's Wakefield, but we did see some brighter skies across southern parts and western parts through today. You can keep your pictures coming into the Weather Watchers page. I'm on Instagram, Keely.Donovan, and on Twitter as well. So the weekend, I think probably tomorrow looks like the better of the 2 days, although there will be a lot of cloud in the forecast for tomorrow. Most of us are looking at a dry day. So tomorrow, often cloudy, largely dry, apart from the odd spot or two of light rain or drizzle, most likely, I think, across the Dales. It will become increasingly unsettled through the weekend. I think later on Sunday, that showers or longer spells of rain will spread up from the southwest. They could be heavy and thundery, and then the Atlantic takes over next week. It does look like there will be some unsettled weather. The remnants of ex-tropical storm Lee, which is currently Hurricane Lee, will bring us some wet and windy weather Tuesday into Wednesday. So this is the satellite picture. You can see this swathe of cloud is a weather front that's been bothering us all week, and you can see we did get some breaks pushing up from the south and east, but I think that cloud will return southwards as we head through this evening and overnight. There could be the odd shower here and there overnight, and then just a general increase in cloud later on in the night as temperatures drop back to around 13 degrees. Let's have a quick look at those high water times then. In Filey, just before 6 o'clock this morning, and in Bridlington, just after 6 o'clock. So quite a bit of cloud to start the day tomorrow, and I actually think overall we will keep quite a lot of the cloud. There will be sunnier skies across parts of East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. We might see a few of these breaks in the cloud filtering further north, but most of the forecasts have consistently had a lot of cloud over our part of the world. Largely dry, but we can't rule out a little bit of drizzle, particularly where the cloud lowers over the Dales, for example. Temperatures cool in the north, perhaps getting up to around 16 or 17 degrees in the south. There may well be some thundery rain later in the day on Sunday, Amanda.
But maybe some wintry sunshine to come.
No, not winter. It's not winter yet.
Yeah, sorry, I'm fast forwarded. Because my children's starting to talk about Christmas.
Oh, don't.
Ignore that. That's it from us. Do have a lovely weekend despite the weather, and we'll be back with your late news and weather just after 10 o'clock. Goodbye.